house is quiet, and I'm definitely about to creep myself out, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm for sure going to read 3 stories. Maybe 4. I don't know. We'll see how I feel. But I will be reading them off You My Crusty Nails. This iPhone, this old iPhone. And let me just jump right in. So, these stories are from the Creepy Encounters forum. And let me see. Okay. This first story is by the user Wolf_Dream. And this was posted 1 year ago. And it's titled My Hills Have Eyes Moment in Texas. In 2010, I was driving from New Orleans, LA, to Eugene, Oregon. That's OR, right? Hopefully it's Oregon. It was just me, 24, female, and my 2-year-old pit bull in a 14-foot U-Haul truck with everything I owned crammed into the back. A fancy flip phone and my printout of my MapQuest directions. I think the first smartphones actually came out around that time, but I didn't have one. Cell phone service was also much spottier, and there were long stretches through the desert where I had 0 service for hundreds of miles. I was driving a lonely stretch of highway through central Texas when I realized I hadn't seen a town or exit for a very long time, and my giant U-Haul was really low on gas. Just when I'm starting to freak out and seriously run out of gas, I see a small town coming up. I pull into this town and it is tiny. I was so worried about other things that I never did pay attention to the name of the town, but there were only about 6 streets in the whole place. I go gas up and I'm ready to get back on the road. Except for the life of me, I can't find my way back to the highway. I circle the town about 4 times and start getting so frustrated because this is such a tiny town. How the fuck can I not find my way out? I can literally see the highway, but I can't get to it. I returned to the gas station to ask for directions. Now when I got gas, I paid at the pump and never went in. When I enter for directions, there's a skinny, nondescript guy who has black hair hanging down in front of his eyes that looks like it could use a good wash. He's not particularly grabs a raggedy local map from his glove box. Spreading it out to me, he traces the route I describe. The way the man from the gas station had told me to go led away from town, away from the interstate, and led to seemingly the middle of nowhere. Texas told me that the road did go about 17 miles, right before it dead-ended in the desert. I asked him what was out there, and he told me that it was nothing but some junked cars and a few trailers and mobile homes, all owned by the same family. This family was known locally as troublemakers, meth heads, and alcoholics, and these were the nice things townspeople had to say about them. And the erstwhile clerk was part of this family and lived down that road. I'll never forget the look in Texas's eyes as he told me this. He also told me that I was smart to listen to my instincts, and he told me to be careful traveling out there. I don't know if the man from the gas station wanted what was in the back of my U-Haul or what was in the driver's seat, but thankfully I didn't have to find out. Oh, and I learned that sometimes angels look like ruddy-haired Texans with scruffy faces and rusty pickups. Thank you, random Texan stranger. You really saved my ass, and I will always remember you with tons of love. Sorry I didn't ask your name. You're forever Texas to me now. That one seems pretty mild just reading it, but putting myself in that situation, I'm the kind of person that's always thinking about the what ifs. Like all the what ifs in a shitty situation, I'm thinking about that. Like, where would that route have taken her? I'm sure it would have put her into danger by the way he was describing it. It's a good thing that she did not have to find out. Okay. Alright, next. My throat keeps making weird sounds. Okay. Next, I am going to be reading The Time I Was Almost Abducted by a Serial Killer. And this is by the user Meepidesk. It was posted a year ago. In February of 2012, I went to visit my grandfather's grave for his birthday. His death was a really hard thing for me to deal with, as he had died in March of 2011, and it was still very fresh to me. I was kneeling in front of his grave with my head down, mourning and crying, when my body went into full danger is close by mode. I looked up to see a man running a full sprint from the woods surrounding the cemetery and forced myself to get to my truck as quickly as possible without the man getting too close to me. Thinking of somebody running full force at me that I don't know in any situation, I would probably shit myself. Anyway, by the time I made it to my truck, he had gotten about 50 feet from me. I jumped in and locked the door, much to his apparent displeasure. He threw his hands up in a huff, like his favorite team had just lost a football game. I started the truck and started to drive out as fast as I could, but not before driving right past him. I didn't break eye contact for a second, and neither did he, so I got a really good look at his face. Cut to a few years later, I'm at work, bored, and decided to download an app that had a ton of paranormal, cryptid, serial killer, and UFO articles. As I was browsing through the serial killers, I came across one that made my heart drop into my ass. Israel Keys, most known for murdering an underage girl in Alaska, dismembering her body, and dropping the pieces into a frozen lake. He would bury kill kids in places long before he ever committed the crimes. After the incident in Alaska, he had traveled into Texas for a wedding in a city not too far from where I live, and had disappeared for a bit, and no one in his family knew where he was. He was arrested in that city and brought to the prison one city over from me, before he extradited back to Alaska to stand trial. was faster, and I'm glad that we didn't officially meet. That one's fucking scary. Like, to know afterwards who that was. And again, like, the what ifs. Like, what if they hadn't noticed him there? And what a piece of shit. Like, a cemetery. Like, somebody is mourning and crying and, like... But I guess if you're a murderer, you probably don't give a shit about people's feelings, right? That one was short. So let's just jump right into another one. This one is by the user CoolMom81. It was posted 2 years ago, and it's called I Dated a Murderer. I had gotten out of an 8-year abusive relationship and met someone on a popular online dating app. To be honest, I wasn't looking for anything serious, just someone to go watch a movie or have a drink with every now and then. I had 2 boys and was happy and living a peaceful life on my own after going through hell. So I meet this guy who was just a couple years older than me, and he had turned his life around. When he was younger, he used to be in gangs and drugs, and now he was into working out and staying really fit and doing family stuff. I guess you can say I felt protected by him. He was a hard worker, self-sufficient, had a son, and he loved going to the gym every day. I myself had kind of a crazy past, but overcame, and so we seemed like a good fit. We would go to dinner, movies, normal dating stuff, but he eventually wanted to spend more and more time together, and I was having trouble giving up all my free time for him, and he would get angry about this. Like, really angry. After being with a controlling, possessive asshole for so long, this was obviously a red flag, and after 3 months, I told him I didn't want to see him anymore. He said he needed to confess something to me. He admitted to me that he was using steroids, and that was the reason for his mood swings. He cried and said he was sure that was the reason and was willing to stop if it meant that we could have another chance, and I obliged, but only under the condition that we remain friends. Things were okay for a while. We saw each other maybe every other week, and he started wanting to see me every week, to which I told him that I was not interested in being anything other than friends at the moment, since I was not ready for a relationship. He tried to talk me into giving him another chance, but I just didn't find myself interested in him in a romantic way, and so I insisted that we just be friends. I stopped talking to him because I got mad at his insistence that we still talk every day, since he said that's what friends do. He would always ask about my whereabouts and ask for pictures of who I was hanging out with, and I told him that this is not what friends do. And he just insisted that he innocently wanted to see what I was up to. Fast forward 6 months later, and I hadn't spoken to him at all within that time. I was happy and living my life, and on one particular night, when my youngest son was at his dad's, I went out to a local bar with friends. My oldest son, who was 13 at the time, was home alone, so I left a little early to make it home around 10 p.m. I lay down in bed and go to sleep. So a little info on my living situation. I had been living in my condo for almost a year now, and we lived in a great, safe community. And I would leave my patio sliding glass door open, screen closed, to get a breeze in at night. No biggie. My bedroom was close to the patio, and my son would sleep in the loft that was closest to the front door. I'm dead asleep when I suddenly feel someone slowly sit on my bed. I'm laying in bed wondering why my son would come sit on my bed so slowly. He wouldn't. I turn around and it's not him. It's Mario, not his real name, laying down in bed next to me. I sit up and ask him how he got in. He's not answering me. He says, "I needed to talk to you." I said, "Okay, when you need to talk to someone, you don't sneak into their room. You call them. You leave a note for them. Literally anything but this." I'm thinking He said, "I didn't have your number anymore. I needed to talk to you before it's too late." I didn't even entertain the "before it's too late" bit because I was livid, but something told me to keep my cool. I sit up and say, "Look, I really want to talk to you too, but not like this. Please just leave, and I promise we will talk tomorrow. Call me tomorrow." He gets up and walks over to my side of the bed and starts rubbing my shoulders and slowly making his way to my neck. He says, "Do you really want to talk?" I look him in the eyes and say, "Yes, I've been wanting to talk to you, but not like this. Please call me tomorrow." He stares at me while rubbing my neck and goes down to my shoulders and lets go. Says, "Okay." This motherfucker proceeds to exit through my patio door and jumps my patio wall, which tells me that is exactly how he got in. I freak the fuck out, check on my kid. He had no idea what was going on, locked all my doors, and I don't sleep the rest of the night. The next day I text him, and I tell him that if I ever see him near me or in my complex, I will call the police and to never contact me again. If you're wondering why I didn't call the cops to begin with, I knew he had a gun, so A, I was scared of being retaliated against for being a snitch, and B, I figured if I called the cops, they would probably not do much or just let him out, and I was afraid of what he would do after the fact. Either way, he left me alone and I didn't see him for years. 4 years later, I'm going through Facebook and I see his face in the "People You May Know" section. I click on the picture and notice that it looks like a jail picture. You know, those pictures where the guy is clearly in a jail cell. I scroll down the page and his most recent post is him posting his address for family members to write to. A prison address. So I Google his name, and sure enough, articles after articles, all with the same headline: "Man arrested on suspicion of killing girlfriend." About 2 years after him and I dated, he shot and killed the girl he was dating. That could have been me. And I feel like shit thinking if there was anything I could have done to stop him. Even scarier thought is that he only got 12 years for her murder. Again, with like the what if they had stayed together? Like, what if, I don't know, what if he wouldn't have left her alone after that? Like, you never know what somebody is capable of or what they're thinking about. And that's why I have trust issues. So, those are the 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 stories I'm going to read off Reddit. It's getting late, but this video is going to be quite short, so I will throw in one more creepy story or creepy encounter. That is like a personal one. It did not happen to me, but it happened to my mom. And it's very brief, but I'll go ahead and tell it. So, my mom told me this years ago, but she said when she was younger, like in her 20s, she was invited on a date by this guy, and he lived really far out in the country, and he just seemed like a normal, cool guy, and he was gonna have her over for dinner or whatever. And I guess times were different, because you can bet your ass my first date with somebody is not going to be at their home in the middle of nowhere. I don't care how nice and normal they seem, that's what they always say. So anyways, the times were different, I suppose. My mom's like, "Okay, cool. Gonna go to this guy's house." So she goes to this guy's house, and she said they're having a good time. They're just chit-chatting and just hanging out. She was sitting on the couch, and she said he was just kind of chilling on the floor in front of her. I don't know why he was sitting on the floor, but they were just hanging out, whatever. But she said all of a sudden, like after they were having these like great, like fine conversations, he starts getting like really quiet and like distant, like he's thinking about something else. And she said he started like breathing really heavy, like something was wrong, and my mom was like, "Are you okay? Like what's your deal? What's going on?" And she said that like he wasn't talking much after that. He was just being really fucking weird. And so she's like, "Okay, I'm gonna head out." And he stops her